Hello, welcome to the presentation of adolescent sex trafficking in Asuncion, Paraguay. You will be listening to myself, Sarah, Erica, Kinsey, and Aubrey, in that order, present about our research proposal this semester. Thank you for your participation. So, for those of you who don't know anything about Paraguay, it's located in South America between Argentina, Bolivia, and Brazil. It has a population estimated at just under 7 million. 2% of that population is indigenous, and the national languages are Spanish and the indigenous language, Guarani. And the political system there is they have a presidential representative democratic republic. For those of you that's a mouthful, they have had dictatorships which have dominated their culture historically and led to a lot of the disparity in the distribution of power. Based on the 2016 study by Encyclopedia Britannica, 25% of the population is under 25 and 54% of the population is under 29. That's relevant information for this presentation because we will be focusing on that 25% of the population that is considered adolescents and that are struggling with sex trafficking. So to help you become a little educated on the issue, there's a terminology called crudazgo in Paraguay, which is the social acceptance of adolescents in servitude as domestic servants. And so they go and work in the wealthy households in exchange for room, board, and educational expenses. A lot of the time that agreement is not kept, and that ends up in the adolescent living in subpar conditions and dealing with sexual, emotional, and physical abuse. At the end of that servitude, they often end up in sex trafficking, and the internal trafficking of children is not recognized by the Paraguay government, which is where we felt that there is a huge discrepancy because a lot of the research we did said that the internal trafficking was a big reason and precursor for the international trafficking of children and specifically women a lot of the time. And so we found a non-government organization called Luna Nueva that we are going to be assessing. And some background information about Luna Nueva is they have been around since 1955. They're based in Asuncion, and it carries out a work of attention, promotion, dissemination, and incidence of the problem of sexual exploitation of children and adolescents. They do work at various cities throughout the country, but they are based out of Asuncion. And its main objective is to accompany girls and adolescents who are sexually exploited to help them in their process of personal fulfillment, seek the development of their potential and individual and collective resources that will allow them to assume in a self-managed way and to raise their quality of life. And Luna Nueva is currently the only institution in Paraguay that has a comprehensive program and methodology for girls and adolescents who are victims of sexual exploitation. The 3-year program that we are going to be investigating surveys the street looking for individuals who might be caught up in trafficking, and the only requirement for that individual to be brought into the program is for them to give up the life of being trafficked, which is difficult when you have social factors such as family and peers wanting you to stay in that line of work. The program consists of 5 stages: hospitality, integration, education, appropriate life skills, and learning how to navigate through society without being subjected to trafficking. Luna Nueva puts an emphasis on being able to psychologically evaluate the girls and their families and see where the gap in education is. Erica will be taking over next, going over our research question and furthering your knowledge on this presentation. Thank you.
Hello all, my name is Erica Kennedy. I am doing the research question, population, and sample. Our research question for Paraguay is Luna Nueva's 3-year program helping reduce the presence of sex trafficking in Asunción? Are there gaps in the rehabilitation system that can be improved? And are there higher rates of Indigenous participants within the program? And lastly, what are they doing to pervasively educate society of the harmful effects of sex trafficking? So we are going to observe the NGO Luna Nueva by assessing their efficacy in rehabilitating adolescent girls back into society. These girls have been previous victims of sex trafficking. We are focusing with adolescent girls due to the fact that 80% of victims that are victims of sexual violence are indeed female. This human trafficking has become, unfortunately, the billion-dollar modern-day slavery. The major social cultural factors contributing to these sex trafficking is inequality and poverty. So we're going to assess the approaches and assess the multiple influences that are influencing these children and these adolescents, and how Luna Nueva modifies those influences and provides children with effective and productive skills for their future. And seeing how they help the children cope with these physical and brutal assaults. So one of the things is, well, many of the things that children face on a daily basis is poverty, little or no education. They are forced to become child soldiers. They're forced child labor, forced child marriage, and most of all, child trafficking. Girls are often kidnapped and exploited, and for sexual or domestic reasons. Many girls are raped and continue to be victims of sexual violence throughout the majority of their lives. Or they're sold by their families because their family doesn't have money or food to survive, so they're sold by their families for means of survival. Paraguay also has one of the highest rates of sexually transmitted diseases, especially HIV, HPV, and syphilis. Over 40% of women and adolescents suffer from at least one or have at least one sexually transmitted disease, if not more. The focus again from this research question is to assess the program, evaluate areas that are needing more improvement, and determine if there's gaps and how we can apply better methods and able to help these children through this process of getting out of sex trafficking. The second slide will be populations, areas of focus. We are, again, focusing on Paraguay, specifically Asunción and the urban cities surrounding it. The participants will be adolescent girls, as I've already discussed. To narrow it down, we will be observing those who are 17 and under, so more really adolescent girls, younger girls. Our goal is to understand reasons for and influences as to why individuals decided to continue and graduate from the program, and then why others withdrew from the program. This provides us information and identifies areas that are needing improvement and reasons as to what influenced these adolescents to withdraw or graduate. And it also helps us develop more effective preventative approaches and methods. As for the third slide, we're going to be talking about sample. So we will be conducting a survey specifically for a group of adolescent girls. We will be interviewing individually those who are voluntarily consenting to participate in the research. And so we are going to be using simple random sampling. We will be accessing Luna Nueva's already established records for consent. And we'll be, again, interviewing those adolescents that are voluntarily consenting to participate in the research. If we end up using or needing to interview younger children, we will be using trauma-informed interviewing methods for those who have experienced a lot amount of trauma at a very, very young age. And this will help us gather information without re-traumatizing the child or adolescent. Again, the participants will be girls, adolescent girls, specifically 20. We're going to focus on 20, 10 who have completed the program and 10 who withdrew. Again, this will identify elements of the program that were successful in rehabilitating back into society and identify areas of improvement that need to help children facilitate themselves back into society or other resources that they need to be successful after they graduate from the program, or if they didn't graduate from the program. Our goals in this is to present findings and our findings and information to investors and possible entrepreneurs, and gain more fiscal support to keep the social advocacy of Luna Nueva alive. This is very important to keep this program alive and keep these children cycling through this program, understanding their rights, their civil rights, the laws, and what they don't have to be subject to. As a child or adolescent, they do have a way out, and there is help, and we are focusing on that and making it very pervasive in society. Luna Nueva seems to be the only program that focuses on this. There are smaller programs that we're aware of, but Luna Nueva is one of the biggest programs, and I think that other organizations like this need to be developed in more rural areas to protect those children as well. And it is suggested that those who complete the program within the Luna Nueva are more likely to have a better ability to evade sex trafficking and that type of lifestyle.
Great, thanks guys. So now that we have a background on the demographics of Paraguay and also a little bit of the problem of sex trafficking there, and then also having proposed our research question, let's talk about our plan. We will now go over what we need to do in regards to recruitment, data collection, and also data analysis. So step 1 is to fly to Asunción. So Luna Nueva is actually based in Asunción. That's where they do most of their work, although they do touch on other parts of the country. This is where kind of their home base is. This video, I'll play it again. This video is footage of Asunción. This is a plane coming into Asunción. As you can see, it's a very beautiful place. And it looks like it's a big city, so there's a lot of people there. So we're excited to kind of get in there and get to work. Let's see. So step number 2 is to meet with the workers at Luna Nueva. So again, in Asunción, this is where their home base is. This photo was actually taken by the Facebook group, or the Facebook page of Grupo Luna Nueva. And we don't know for sure exactly what these workers from Luna Nueva do. I don't know if these are the ones that go out into the city, who work very closely with the victims of sex trafficking, or if they're the managers or administrators. However, we do know that they have a very big part in Luna Nueva. And so it was really nice the first thing we did when we decided to go with Luna Nueva as our NGO, the first thing we did was go to their Facebook page. And so it was really nice to see kind of the faces behind this cause and this crisis, this social ill that we wanted to kind of research. So we're gonna meet with them, and then step 3 is to recruit. So I'm gonna play this video here. It's kind of dark, but this is actual footage of a sex worker out in the streets of Asunción. It's really short as well. But the part about recruitment is we're going to work with Luna Nueva. So Luna Nueva has workers that go out day and night into the streets of Asuncion, and they approach girls like this one in the video that look like they could be in the sex industry. Now what they do is they try to set a sense of trust and build a relationship, a friendship there. And when they feel the time is right, they will introduce Luna Nueva to this girl. And they will kind of introduce the 3-year program to her, ask her to leave behind sex trafficking, and then also come to the rehabilitation program that they have to offer. So again, let's play this video one more time. This is something that these Luna Nueva Luna Nueva workers might be looking for on the streets of Asuncion, and these sex workers. So the next step is data collection. So data collection, what we're gonna do for this is, of the girls that have been in contact with Luna Nueva, we're gonna take 20 of them, as was previously talked about in previous slides. We're gonna randomly select 20 of them for our research purposes. 10 of these girls will be those who have successfully finished all 3 years of the program that Luna Nueva offers. The remaining 10 girls will be those who have entered the program, but for one reason or another, left early and did not fully complete the program. Our data collection will be done in interview form. We propose that the questions need to be open-ended. We also propose that we need to be in an intimate, safe setting for the interviews. Now, we do not want to, our first thought was, okay, well, a place that the girls can feel safe is maybe in their own homes. But one thing that's a problem with that is we want these answers and these responses to our interview questions to be unbiased. And a lot of times, if we're in the girl's home, that could sway the answers that she gives, depending on who's around. And we don't want that. We want genuine answers and responses to our questions. Another thing is we don't want to do it in the headquarters of Luna Nueva, even though that is a good resource for us as visitors to Paraguay, because again, we could get some biased answers there. Well, let's see. So we do not, we don't want to lose any information in translation or any information from the time that we collect it in the interviews to the time that we analyze it. So one thing to combat that is voice recorders. So we're going to use voice recorders that will be recording the whole interview from every girl that we interview. All right, description of data analysis. So step 5 is to return to the US with our data. And one of the reasons for that is kind of goes back to budget. So we just don't see that there's any reason to stay in Paraguay. Once we have collected all our data, there's no reason to extend our stay, and thus creating the need for more funds just to do what we can do in the US. So having said that, we will return to the US once we collect our data. We will have our translating team translate the recordings, the voice recordings from Spanish, obviously, into written English. If our findings are, let's see, sorry. So we will be able to see with our data the commonalities that exist between these two groups. So the 10, as you see here, the 10 that completed the 3 years of the program and are rehabilitated, I guess, and then the 10 that for runners and that did not finish it. So we want to find commonalities between the two, but more importantly, we want to find differences between the two, which will then help us to see, okay, is Luna Nueva's rehabilitation 3-year program really helping this social ill in Paraguay? And again, this is just a small research group. And I think this has the potential to have stronger research plans in the future. If we see something that kind of catches our eye in our research, I think it would make sense to go back and do a greater scale to kind of back that up. But for our purposes, we're just going to do 10 and 10. So based on our findings, we want to compile a report on the data. Okay, now if our findings are complementary with or complementary of Luna Nueva and the efforts that they put forth, then this data and the reports should most definitely be used by Luna Nueva or by other groups that are advocating for victims of sex trafficking to receive more funding. I think the report can help prove, like, look, this is helping. This is this 3-year program, this rehabilitation style and program that we've designed really does help.
And regarding the ethical considerations of our research project, one of the big ones is that we're going to be working with minors. Our participants are going to be mostly women and children, although there could be some men and boys. There is a very high potential and almost a guarantee that we are going to be working with minors. So this is definitely something to keep in mind when we are going to be doing our research. Something else that may be an ethical consideration is that there may be individuals we come into contact with that are responsible for the trafficking. So not only are we going to come into contact with the victims of trafficking, but also maybe the people that are responsible for this when we are conducting our research. We want to make sure that there is no undue enticement for any of our participants. Some of these people may be in a more desperate state of living conditions and offering money or things like that to participants. It could be taking advantage of a desperate situation. We want participants to be voluntary, nothing against their own best interest. Last is to maintain confidentiality. It needs to be at the highest regard of keeping confidentiality of all of our participants. There is a lot of backlash for some of these victims, so that is just, they may be hesitant to speak out to begin with, so keeping their confidentiality is going to be very important. Now, our proposed budget for this project, total for our entire group is $15,000. This is $3,750 per person. This includes airfare, lodging, meals, transportation, translator, an emergency fund, and then miscellaneous items. For our lodging, we were deciding between a hotel or Airbnb, and we decided to go with an Airbnb. It is a super host. This gives us just a little bit more safe guarantee. It being a super host, it's just a verified home, and being in a foreign country, that is something that we thought was important. As for our emergency fund, we decided to allocate enough for a potential emergency return flight home in the event that we weren't going to be leaving at the time we thought we would, and we just wanted to, with all of our estimates, we rounded up to make sure that we wanted to round up instead of rounding down to make sure that we had too much instead of too little. As for the miscellaneous items, this varies from group member to group member, and it would include things like a potential passport, immunizations, clothing if someone felt like they needed clothing for the trip, potential luggage, additives for a phone plan, and out-of-country additives, among other things. But with all of our categories, we rounded up a little bit just to make sure that all of our bases were going to be covered. Now, the strengths and limitations of our research. There's going to be strengths and limitations with all trafficking research just because reporting on the subject matter can be very inconsistent. There is a bias held towards trafficking victims, not only within themselves, because a lot of victims don't want to self-identify as victims, but also whether it be politicians or just the community, a lot of times there is a bias held towards trafficking victims. Some victims really believe that they don't personally identify as a trafficking victim, although they do. But as for the community or public figures, a lot of times the victims are questioned, why didn't they leave, why they resort to this, right? Why didn't they report it, things like that. So altogether, this does impact funding as well, just because there is that bias held. So the funding is a really big limitation that we have with this. Throughout previous research, a lot of people who resort to trafficking initially do it because they have a lack of a proper education. So there being a lack of proper education in this country to begin with is a limitation that adds into trafficking as a whole. So to get all of our information to people, we initially want to educate the community. So before trafficking has become a problem, before someone is caught up in the scenario of being trafficked, we want to educate the community on how to spot trafficking. So whether that be hotel workers, public transit, airline workers, among other things, flyers can catch a broad spectrum of people. This would bring light to the problem, and for a problem like this, shedding light on it to begin with is something that can initiate potential change to begin with. It seems insignificant, but a lot of times with problems like trafficking, people aren't talking enough about it. So getting people to think and talk about it just kind of initiates that positive change that we so desperately want and need. We've seen success and read about success in things, putting flyers in stalls and bathrooms, airports, hotels, things like that. A few of our group members have been in the airport before where a flyer has been on the bathroom stall while you were using the restroom talking about human trafficking, and as they've left the restroom, it's been on their mind. It's been something that they were intentionally looking out for, whereas before they read the flyer, it just wasn't something that crossed their mind. So bringing attention like that would really is one way we plan to relay information to the community. Another great thing that we wanted to take advantage of was social media. It's a great place that doesn't require any allocation of money for a budget for distributing the information that we have found or educating the community before it is a problem. Social media can reach an insane amount of people. So using that to our advantage to relay information, whether that be the initial how to spot trafficking or the other steps of the rehabilitation and getting out of trafficking, it can reach a lot of people and shed a lot of attention onto this problem that not only these people, but this country is having right now.